Welcome into One Giant Step. One giant win. The Giants will not go winless in the year 2025. Bryce, Gelman, and myself, Shaun, Morash, here to recap as we do each and every single week, and a unique dynamic coming at you here on One Giant Step. Remember, you can download and subscribe everywhere you get your podcasts, including free on the Audacy app. Actually, before I break down the dynamic, let me just address this part of this. This is a frantic and wild Sunday that Bryce and I are recording this on in the New York sports world.
Yeah.
It is going to lead to a frantic and wild week, frankly, in the New York sports world. And, you know, with all things being good with the Yankees, maybe a very fruitful October ahead. We are aware that there's a million different topics. If you're a Mets fan, I understand Sunday was pure misery for you. I do. And all trolling aside, like, that sucks. And I get it. Yankee fan perspective, it kind of sucks. I not winning the AL East. And
no, this is what we want. This is what we want. This is exactly what we want.
That's not what I want. But either way, we get the Yankees, Red Sox this week. The Yankees are going to the postseason. The Jets have yet to play a game on a Monday night. And then, of course, the reason you're here, the New York Football Giants start a rookie first-round quarterback and win a game while also losing their wide receiver for the season, their star wide receiver. So we are, we get it. So wherever you're getting into your sports content this week, your team-specific content, understand that if you hear some optimism in our voice, it is strictly Giants related. It is not a knock on the Mets not making the playoffs or what's going on there.
We're a Giants podcast.
I know.
What else would people think?
You know why, Bryce? Because I've learned this doing the podcasting world and the sports radio world both at the same time. There are a lot of people who can't separate their emotions for teams, and I've been guilty of that before. And I've already seen a lot of, who cares about football right now, what the Mets just had, like from Giant fans.
Fair.
So just understand this is strictly Giants content related as far as we're concerned. All right, Bryce Gelman was at this game, a game that I'm going to think he's going to remember for the rest of his life as far as, being at Giant games. They have been few and far between at MetLife Stadium, those ones that you can remember in a very positive light. I was with my fat ass on my outdoor bar stools watching the game. So two different perspectives, two completely different ways we viewed this game. But let's break it up in a couple different ways. Number one, the Jaxson Dart start. Number two, the Malik Neighbors injury. And number three, the idea that this team won a game and the defense, while not perfect, certainly looked like a lot of the defense we came to hear about in training camp that finally arrived. So, Bryce Gelman, before we break that all down, you were in the stands at MetLife Stadium. Okay, a very envious spot to be for the Jaxson Dart start. Just kind of give us the vibes going into the game, leaving the game, positives, negatives. I know the Neighbors injury probably deflated a lot of that, but that crowd sounded rocking on TV.
There's a lot of anticipation walking into that stadium. Listen, the vibes were immaculate for an 0-3 team in the MetLife parking lot. Wherever you look, there's people throwing around the pigskin, people grilling. This is exactly how it should be on a Sunday at 1 o'clock for the New York Giants. Again, 0-3 team. You wouldn't expect the optimism going into this game, but of course, Jaxson Dart's first career start. I told you, and I told everyone on this podcast, that this game today was a seminal moment in Giants history. And I think that delivered. The idea, the promise of a better hope and a better future, a new hope for the Giants was delivered upon. And that game, that first drive in which Jaxson Dart scrambled for 15, 20, whatever the hell yards, and he scored, Shaun, I have not witnessed a crowd that loud. And I've been in plenty of crowds. I've been to the Garden during the playoffs. It was the loudest crowd that I've been a part of maybe in my entire life.
Wow. Like that, I've been
for that.
I've been at the Giants Falcon playoff game, but this is the way it sounded on TV. So I'm glad you're saying.
Think about it. Think about all this pent up frustration and depression, years and years and years. The Giants finally draft a quarterback, and that quarterback starts, and he puts together one of the best. I mean, can we say it's probably the best opening drive the Giants have had all season, right? Maybe the Cowboys one was good, right?
No, it was the first time they scored a touchdown in 9 games. On the opening drive.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know the exact stat.
To answer your question, yes, it was the best opening drive all season. It was the best opening drive they've had in 9 games.
So the game was great. The energy was great. And then, of course, the Neighbors injury happens. In the moment, again, it was a free play. Everyone was like, oh, yeah, here we go. And then he comes down. Couldn't see it. I was in the opposite end of the field. But then the cart comes out, wheels him off. And I think everyone could put two and two together. And then I opened my phone about 20 minutes later, and I see the tweet from Ian Rappaport saying that the fear is that Malik Neighbors tore his ACL. So I think the energy for me, and there are a lot of other people that aren't as chronically online as me, on my phone constantly trying to see, and I've got notifications on for all the major, writers, beat writers, whatever. Seeing that completely knocked the wind out of my sails. Completely. I'm like, oh, whatever. They could win the game. Awesome. But what are we realistically looking forward to? And then I went back out there, and the Giants put together a spirited effort, specifically on the defensive end, no pun intended. And they won a game that I think a lot of people needed them to win, especially after the Neighbors injury. I don't think anyone wanted to, of course, they don't want to leave the stadium, with another disappointing loss, but especially after that Neighbors injury, where that game was going at the time of the Neighbors injury, the hope, the excitement for all of that hope, the collective hope to be completely taken out of the stadium to the end of that game. I'm very grateful to have been there. Of course, I wish Malik Neighbors was healthy and didn't tear his ACL, but it's as bittersweet as you could get, and it's a win at the end of the day, and I'm very grateful to have witnessed a Giants win at MetLife Stadium. They've been few and far between in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about this game. And before we get to Dart and everything, I think because you've tackled a lot of the negative in that feeling with Malik Neighbors, we could touch on that here. At the time we're taping this, we don't have the official word. He's obviously going to undergo testing, but I think we all know where this is headed, right? I mean, how often do you see a guy fears he tore his ACL and then he didn't? And that sucks. And I think that there would be a certain level of thumping our chestness that we might have right now had Malik Neighbors not gotten hurt in this game. And also the game could have been completely different. Like that entire second half of offense is completely different with your best player in there. But it just sucks. And it's going to be an uphill battle for a young quarterback and for a team that really built a lot of its offense around one guy. And we know that they were kind of thin at the wide receiver position beyond that. So that said, it stinks. It's going to stink not seeing Malik Neighbors play football, but look, it's a next man up mentality, right? Like nobody's going to feel sorry for him. The Giants have had seasons crater. And when I say seasons crater, nobody's thinking this team now is suddenly at 1-3 going to be a playoff team, nor should you with Malik Neighbors. But just in terms of competence, this can't turn into what happened to the Giants when Andrew Thomas kept going down. You know what I mean? Like, it may, but find another identity. You have a new element at quarterback here. Get Darius Slayton going. Let's see. Does that lead to more Jalen Hyatt, who suddenly was on the field today? Does it lead to more Bo Collins? Do they sign somebody? I'm just going to throw this out there. Odell Beckham Jr., bring him back for a little energy homecoming. I know that's not going to be met with eyes, but now it kind of makes sense for me. Just saying, in case that happens, I'm going to stamp my approval that I'm okay with that. It sucks. Losing Malik Neighbors sucks. But these wins have been so hard to come by. I mean, they had lost, 13 of their last 14 games going into this game?
I think it was more like 16 of the last 17, I believe. I was trying to do the math before, and I believe they won one of their last 12 games of the season last year, and then, of course, now 4 weeks into the season, I think it's 1 and 16 in the last 17 games. Or
whatever it is, it's been
the last
horrible.
18 games. Yeah.
So we are in the unfortunate position, and I'm going to be upset, and I'm going to be annoyed at Malik Neighbors after a couple, not at Malik Neighbors, but you know what I mean, at the situation as the days go by. But for tonight on a Sunday night, whenever you guys are listening and digesting this, I have no choice but to say, you know what? Just breathe, man, because this organization needed to win in the worst way. The head coach needed to win in the worst way. Winning and getting that first win out of the way with a rookie quarterback, so that doesn't mount. I mean, it needed that in the worst way, and the defense needed the worst way. So while the Malik Neighbors thing hampers it, they won a football game. Now on to the quarterback.
Yep.
That opening drive was stupendous. It was magical. It was, everything that you dream of, and he runs in the end zone, and that was great. And then obviously later on, the shovel Travis Kelce-like pass to Theo Johnson for a touchdown. That was great. The pass to Theo Johnson to extend that drive where they were trying to wind the clock at the end, unbelievable. And really, honestly, his play of the day is probably the play. And I'm not sure if you saw this in real time, Bryce, or if it was just strictly on TV. But when they're pinned back early in that game, and it's looking like, oh my God, are they going to punt out of the shadow of their own end zone? To scramble and climb the pocket and use your hand to wave back Slayton and tell him to come back to the ball. That was the moment I know the people I was watching the game with, where we all looked at each other and were like, wait, Giant quarterbacks are allowed to do that? Yeah. Giant quarterbacks are allowed to direct traffic like that.
So I was sitting in that corner of the end zone, so I did see it, and Very excited about that play.
Yeah,
very relieved.
sure
Very like just like a breath of fresh air. Like wow.
And it's a subtle thing, right? They don't get points out of that drive, but you get them out of the shadow of the end zone by completing that pass. And even if the drive stalls like that, that was a big field position moment, and it just showed true leadership. He took too many sacks today. But in taking too many sacks, first of all, there was one sack where he just completely didn't set protection. A Luminor slides to the inside, and a free rusher comes in. Guess what? What do we talk about, Bryce? When it comes to rookie quarterbacks playing, rookie quarterbacks are going to make mistakes, right? That was a massive mistake. The sacks. He ran into a lot of them on their own. It was less about the offensive line and more about Jaxson Dart either not establishing the protection / understanding where the pressure was coming from. And in the end, when that happened early in Daniel Jones' tenure, as much as Daniel Jones had a lot of good moments in 2019, they would oftentimes lead to fumbles. And that became a major issue for Daniel Jones. And I'm comparing Daniel Jones because that was the last rookie quarterback we saw play. He held on to the football. Like, the sacks suck, but at least he ate the sacks and he didn't turn the football over. So I thought that was another positive. And the negatives on top of taking the sacks in general, when you're running out of the shotgun as much as they have to because he fumbles under center like that in that one spot,
yeah,
you could establish a good run identity. And the Giants had it cooking, and Scadaboo was cooking, and there were times Singletary was cooking on that one specific drive. But if you can't get down and play some old school, I-formation football on the goal line, you're going to leave yourself up to susceptible, and that cost the Giants points towards the end of that game that could have iced the game when you see Scadaboo knock it in on second down, and then third down, Dart is getting tackled 3 yards back, and then he obviously throws a ball that Wan'Dale has 2 hands on, can't catch it. But in the end, they're going to have to find a way, with as successful as the run game is getting, to still be able to muscle their way into the end zone. It's not now red zone problems for the Giants. If this is the way Dart's got to operate in a run offense, it's going to be inside the 5 that's going to be a problem. So there were definitely glaring negatives. But overall, I just thought stylistically, we heard a lot about the charisma, the grit, like all that stuff. People started to mock after a while, but that all was really true in this game. I do think there was more good than bad. But when taking into account that this was a guy picked in the 20s in the first round and sitting a couple weeks, I think you got the full experience today. And that could not have been an easy spot. Bryce, I know I'm kind of going long here before you react to all this, but for anybody who wants to throw cold water on some of the negatives that Dart had, and I get it, right? I totally get it. I don't know what world you guys were listening in, you One Giant Step listeners, but I know the world I was listening in at WFAN doing this podcast. Obviously, I'm doing stuff over with Talking Giants now. All I kept hearing was Jesse Minter's defense, Jesse Minter's defense. And then I woke up today to more, if they try to run college stuff, Jesse Minter was in Michigan. It was Jesse Minter all week. Jesse Minter could kiss Jaxson Dart's ass this week. Because frankly, for as much as we talked about, I don't think I'm wrong on saying this. You're going to throw cold water on Jaxson Dart's performance? All we heard about was how great this Charger defense was. He did what he had to do in his first ever start and lost his number 1 wide receiver in the game. And still got converted that 2-point conversion, which was huge. I walk away with this feeling very positive without trying to overreact good or bad to the future of Jaxson Dart.
Shaun, it never once felt like Jaxson Dart didn't have complete control over the offense. I think that that's something we've grown so accustomed to over the last year and a half or so of Giants football. I'm talking, going back even to 2022 and Daniel Jones, it felt like he had control of the offense, and it's been an extremely long time coming. With Jaxson Dart, you just never felt like things were going to what. He made the plays when he needed to. The versatility of the offense has changed with the threat of him running the ball. It's opened up running lanes for Camp Scadaboo. Devin Singletary played pretty well in this game as well. And not only does it set you up for the running game, but you've got 3 potential options now. You could run the RPO, and you've seen how other quarterbacks in the league, like Jaden Daniels, have really excelled at that. Now you have a quarterback which you actually could do that with. And of course, you bring in Russell Wilson for one play when Jaxson Dart gets hurt and he gets sacked because you can't do that. He looked to run, but he couldn't. And Jaxson Dart had a lot of success running it up the seams. It wasn't like he was trying to break out. They did a great job containing him. Pocket didn't really collapse on him a lot. And you got to give credit to the offensive line, even though, again, he did get sacked 6 times. It never felt like the offensive line was deteriorating or breaking down at any point. But you got to give him credit for that. And I just think that this is such a signal of good times to come. And just it's such an amazing thing to watch, especially in person. The Giants offense move like an NFL offense should move.
Yeah.
It's like we're asking for the bare minimum, and we got that today and then some.
No doubt. Now, the other negative I would give you, and we knew this in the preseason, and it is who he is, but we learned another lesson again. At some point, he's going to have to slide on the football here. Ends up in the medical tent for 2 plays. Subtly kind of funny that Russell Wilson takes a sack immediately when he comes into the game. But we saw this in that Thursday night preseason game to end the preseason. We saw it here. I don't know how many times it's going to take him to learn his lesson, but the Giants, for better or worse, have 2 complete nutcases in their backfield in Jaxson Dart and Cam Scatterbo. And the probability of those guys ending up in medical tents, the style they play, is probably pretty high. And that scares me to death. But Jaxson Dart's got to learn how to protect himself. And he's going to learn. He's probably going to learn the hard way if he didn't learn again today. So just another part of it. And overall, though, offense flowed. Really tough defense to go against. And it's just good tape to put on tape. And this is going to be one of those things now going forward with Jaxson Dart. You just take it one game at a time. The Saints last week were really much in a game. This week they were very much in a game with the Bills before it spiraled out of control. I think anybody looking at that as a lay up off the glass win, just pump the brakes. It's going to be a challenging game. But each week. So for all the talk before we get to our defense about, well, the Giants are putting this kid in an impossible spot. They're throwing him to the Wolves versus Jesse Minter. Do you feel like he handled himself with flying colors today? Because I do.
Yeah.
And if that was such a horrible spot to put himself in, how much more horrible did it get when in the second quarter you lost your number 1 target to a torn ACL? He handled that with flying colors. And I think for all of us that have been starved for good quarterback play, as fans of the New York Giants, Bryce, you and I, who talk about the New York Giants here for a living, that was really a breath of fresh air and something I'm excited about. And I think when we get to the point where we do our preview pod later in the week, we're going to be really excited to talk about New York Giants football, and we're going to be looking forward to the next games. Depending on the wins and losses, I'm sure we'll get upset about it, but that, it is what it is, man. We got a quarterback here that we can kind of build on this year. Now, I do, from a podcast standpoint, I know I'm going to do a lot of sports radio this week about Jaxson Dart. I know I'm going to do a lot of sports radio this week about Malik Neighbors. But if you're coming here for Giants content, I actually think the biggest takeaway from this game is neither of those things, but it's the Giants' defense. Bryce, I don't know how you guys felt in the stadium. There were points in this game that defense drove me nuts, as they do every week, right? When you go up 11 points and you give up that long-ass run from Omarion Hampton, horrible, inexcusable.
How about the Justin Herbert run on 3rd down? The 25-yard run, 3rd and 20.
Brutal. Or the play where Deonte Banks is a chicken with his head cut off, and Quentin Johnston is catching the ball down the field. And Abdul Carter, I thought they had lost the game when Abdul Carter jumped off sides on 4th and 2. Those moments were dreadful. So before anybody goes, hey, Shaun Morash is such a homer here. Huh? Those moments, again, hear me out, were dreadful. The Chargers did lose Joe Alt early in this game. He's in a boot, and that's a brutal injury. But guess what? We lost Malik Neighbors, so I don't want to hear about this when we're talking about defensive performances. The Giants' defense, outside of those bad moments, came to play. This is a top 10, some put him 5th quarterback in the league, who had his 3 complements of really good wide receivers, who has a really good rookie running back, who has an excellent head coach. And that Giant defense went out there today and gave up 18 points. And unlike the past couple of weeks with Russell Wilson playing offense and the Giant defense coming out there, outside of that one enormous play when the Giants went up 11 with Hampton, which I thought was a killer, the Giant defense kept answering the bell, even late in that 4th quarter. Every time they needed a stop, they got one. And Abdul Carter had a ton of pressures today. I thought he was excellent. Dexter Lawrence with that almost pick 6 where he's rumbling. Oh, man, can he get in the end zone?
Dude, that was electric. I haven't gone off for any. I mean, I would have done the exact same at home on my couch, but in person, I've never gotten as excited for any sports moment in my life. If you listen to this podcast, you know how big of a fan I am of Dexter Lawrence. And it was a great sight to see. The 2 plays in a row, he finally got the pressure. He was non-existent earlier on in that game. He gets the pressure. Next play, almost takes you to the house on the pick 6.
That was awesome. And then Drew Phillips gets the big pick, and I thought Phillips had a good game as well. Of course, he couldn't finish getting in. All those moments were incredible. None were more incredible, and none were more reminiscent. And the only thing I could bank on is 2022 because that's the last time the Giants had any, myriad of success. But the Brian Burns sack at the end of that game, where he's shooting spider webs, he blows up an entire play and sacks Herbert. That's been the exact closing moment kind of play that the Giants did not get versus the Cowboys. They certainly did not get that finish on the Chiefs last week, and it's been a play they've been searching for a couple years. And that was the first time I breathed on Sunday, Bryce, and said, holy crap, they're going to win this game, was when Brian Burns had that sack. And in the end, when you look at all the hurries and pressures, and they should be doing this, right? This is a very banged-up Charger offensive line. I'll make this known. If the Giants' identity was supposed to be their defense, this is the kind of game versus beat-up lines that when we were drawing up the wins, losses, can the Giants, I think I said this too, can the Giants upset a couple teams because their pass rush wreaks havoc? I mean, I'm sure you could go in the archives of One Giant Step and find that exact quote from
You said it. I think we both said it.
Yeah.
That was like the one way the Giants were going to pick up multiple wins this year. Or upsets, and that would need to happen.
Case in point today, the 3-0 Chargers, for all the Jaxson Dart stuff we'll talk about, lost this game because the Giants pass rush wrecked it on them. And Brian Burns wrecked that lasting moment of Justin Herbert in this game. And the Giants are going to need more of those this year, no doubt about it. But when you get your first win like that, Bryce, and you see the work you put in as a pass rushing unit leads to a win, that stuff can be infectious for a locker room that's been extremely beaten down by hard times and losses. So I'm looking forward, and it just feels like Abdul Carter, man, he's so frustrating when he doesn't get these sacks, but as a rookie, he's coming, man. He is so close to finishing off these plays. Dude. He forced that intentional grounding. Second intentional grounding he's forced this year, by the way. Did that in week 1. They're close, man. They really are.
Dude, what a revelation for Shane Bowen. When you play Abdul Carter at the position you drafted him in, he actually plays well. He plays like a top pick in the NFL draft. Finally outside. I mean, he's been going back and forth, but today was by far the most snaps, and we don't have the snap numbers, and I'd like to look at those, but I could tell just from being there, it's the most amount of snaps that he's played at edge rusher, and look what happened. He got to the quarterback. There was just constant pressure off the edge, no matter whether it was Kayvon, whether it was Burns, whether it was Abdul, and Dexter Lawrence finally stepped up in this game. The defensive line was amazing. The one thing that bothered me from Shane Bowen was I still don't understand how Deonte Banks plays as much as he does. As you said chicken with his head cut off. That play at the end of the first half, the Quentin Johnson touchdown, Deonte Banks was lost on that play. He actually had to pick the play before when he jumped off sides, whatever happened there. But I think that you look at that, and then one other thing, Dexter Lawrence was not in on that drive, the Omarion Hampton 50-yard touchdown run. He was not in, and then wasn't in on the 2-point conversion. Just head-scratching stuff. I don't understand it. The in-depth, like, NFL defensive coordinators do.
I think he's really battling this elbow.
But that is a big spot to be in because he came back in. I just, you get that long touchdown run, put him in for the 2-point conversion.
Devil's advocate, Bryce, every play for this Giant defense who can ill afford to give up points is a big one to be off the field for. They always become big ones to be off the field for when you see them turn into big plays.
Yeah, but the 2-point conversion, like, you got to stop there. It obviously helps a lot. Ends up being the final score when they get that. Either way, you'd like to have your best defensive player on the field in that moment. And that's just my observation in person. I'm losing my mind watching Deonte Banks in the field as much as he still plays.
No, we found a new role.
Stuff.
We found a new role for Deonte.
Kickoff
kick returner. I know. And he gave you a little burst there.
When the first time he came out and returned that kick, I'm like, all right. Like I turned my friend, like $5 he fumbles. Like I felt like it was coming. It really did.
So you guys obviously saw that he was going to be returning kicks when he came on the field, right? Because you're in the stadium. On TV, it wasn't like TV made a big deal about it because when you're doing a national broadcast, nobody really cares about Deonte Banks. When he returns that kick, there was a split second, and I know it was with me, my neighbor Dave, and my father at the time. We all looked at each other. 2? Who the hell's 2? Like, you had to remind yourself that Deonte Banks was 2. You saw number 2 returning the kick, and you're thinking, is that a wide receiver that we signed off the practice squad? Oh, it's Deonte Banks. That's right. He wears number 2. It was so out of nowhere. On that note, before we wrap up here, I do think this is absolutely worthy to mention. Special teams today. This would be the ideal game where special teams could have wrecked a giant effort where they got it from the defense. Jaxson Dart gave you enough. And instead, it was quite the opposite. I have been pretty hard on Jamie Gillen. I feel like he gives them little to no advantage most games in the punt game, rarely pinning anybody or whatever. Man, what a booming leg day for him.
Dude, that punt in the end zone, 69 yards.
69 yards. And
69 yards.
And it wasn't his only good punt of the day either. I thought he was actually a weapon for the Giants. And really good for Jude McAtamney. For the kid from Ireland, Rutgers, the whole deal. Now, it sucked that he doesn't have the leg to kick a 57-yarder and we're punting on the fourth down. I really groaned and mumbled at that because what I thought was going to happen was they were going to net about 20 yards and I was going to lose my mind that we weren't just going for it, even though it was 4th and 10. But nonetheless, the kicks that he was asked to make, he made and he drilled. So overall, when you look at a game as tight as this is, 21-18, the final score, you can see on your lower third here if you're watching on YouTube. When the game is 21-18, Bryce, every single one of those special teams plays mattered. And special teams was actually a positive for this team, not a negative.
Yeah, I mean, I again, in person, first off, I mean, that was amazing watching the Deontay Banks kick return. I did see it immediately, and I did turn to my friend and say that comment about him fumbling. Special teams, they showed up today. And Jamie Gillen, there was a lot of, I want to say it, there was a lot of shit talking around about Jamie Gillen, him sucking, and he, quieted all of us very early on in that game. He played extremely well. Of course, there was, I feel like it was one bad punt from him. I'm trying to think. There was one where they shouldn't have gotten this far down. Again, I missed watching the game on TV and watching everything.
Interesting. I didn't pick up on that. Obviously, the Chargers shanked one.
Yeah, I think I don't know. Early in the game, there wasn't like a great punt, but then after that, he was on point with everything. And you're right. I mean, that is totally a situation where the special team screws the Giants, and they didn't. Like everything that needed to go right within the things that had already went right, because there's always a million things that could go wrong for the Giants. It seems like they're so undisciplined. There weren't many penalties today, Shaun, on the offensive end. Defensively, that's another story. There's a bunch of defensive holdings, one on Banks later on in the game. But offensively, were there that much?
Were they? Yeah.
Were there?
Bottom line is this, Bryce. The team won a game. And as we look ahead to the Saints, which we will do later in the podcast episode, I will leave you with this. The Philadelphia Eagles, who the Giants have a big 2 out of 3 game stretch coming up against, are 4-0, and they are infighting and crumbling after they threw for basically no yards in the second half. Are you aware of the A.J. Brown Instagram and tweet tonight?
I did. I didn't read it, but I saw there was a tweet. What did it say?
If you're not welcomed, not listened to, quietly withdraw. Don't make a scene. Shrug your shoulders and be on your way.
You know which team needs a wide receiver 1 now, Shaun?
The New York Giants?
They do. Yeah.
I highly doubt the Eagles are going to do that, but nonetheless, maybe the Giants will catch the Eagles in 2 weeks in a pit of despair. And as we wrap the podcast, it looks like the Green Bay Packers are going in on their first drive in the Dallas Cowboys. Oh, and the Washington Commanders lost. NFC East, back on. I can't even go there. All right, Bryce, our Jaxson Dart recap action. We're done, man. The Giants won. You went. You saw a big win. And we'll be back this week to preview a game versus the New Orleans Saints and remind you that last year the Giants were 2-3 heading into a Sunday night game with the Cincinnati Bengals that they nearly won if Andrew Thomas didn't get hurt and they actually had a kicker. So the Giants could actually be 2-3 for the second straight year in a row. And it all went to hell in a handbasket after that. But maybe, just maybe, even though they're not going to make the playoffs, the season is in fact still on before Columbus Day. At Bryce Gelman on Twitter and X. At Shaun Morash on Twitter and X. Thank you. Oh, yeah, one more thing. Obviously, if you guys are listening to this, I'm still going to do this podcast. I saw a couple people tweet in, hey, what's going on? One giant step. You're not doing it? No, I'm just doing a lot of Giants content. I am doing Talking Giants, which, look, I know I listen to a million Giant podcasts. You guys can too. Walk your dogs, drive in the car, Apple CarPlay. Please keep listening to us here on One Giant Step. Just because you hear my voice once doesn't mean you can't hear it 30 million times. I get sick of it. You shouldn't. That's my word of advice. At One Giants, at Bryce Gelman, at Shaun Morash. I'm here, baby. I'm here with Bryce each and every week, and we're going to continue to churn out the best damn shows we can and start the Jaxson Dart era anew and keep it chugging. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for taking one giant step with us.